Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're joining us in here in Florida or around the world. Welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to have you with us here on this Thursday morning here on the East Coast. We're broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I'm joining you remotely once again from adjacent to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, after wrapping up a busy week here, learning all about the Artemis 2 mission, the ins and outs of the road to launch, the ascent, the mission, the splashdown, the recovery, and all the humans that are making that possible. So, looking forward to sharing those stories with you in the weeks and months to come as we look towards the launch of Artemis 2 no earlier than February 5th of 2026. Very much looking forward to being back in Florida here very shortly as well. If you're joining us from our previous live stream covering the launch of a batch of Starlink satellites from the adjacent pad, Space Launch Complex 40, welcome back. If this is your first launch broadcast of the day, welcome in. This is one of three that we have on tap for you today. Had a successful launch just a few hours ago. Looking forward to another good launch of this Atlas V rocket from United Launch Alliance. Should be a beautiful sunrise flight from Slick 41. Then later on tonight, we're looking towards the launch of another Falcon 9 rocket, this time from the West Coast, carrying 24 Starlink satellites. We'll have live coverage on that beginning about 30 minutes prior to liftoff. But let's go ahead and focus now on this Atlas V rocket, getting ready to carry what will be the fifth overall batch of Kuiper satellites into low Earth orbit. This is ULA's third time carrying Kuipers up to LEO. As we're getting going here, I want to thank the nearly 500 of you who are watching along with us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. I want to thank our wonderful channel member community for making this and every other live launch opportunity possible. Thanks to folks like Jake, Jim Fowley, Glenn A, Mrs. Ed 3, Virginia Pruitt, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Time now, L minus 52 minutes, 26 seconds and counting. As a quick note of reference, the way that the Atlas V launches go as far as the countdown timelines is ULA builds in a couple of planned holds into its count. One that happens prior to the start of fueling, and then there will be one more planned hold once they reach the T minus 4 minute mark. And that's to conduct the final readiness poll and make sure that there are no issues on any of the systems related to the Centaur upper stage, the Atlas booster, solids, the ground systems, and of course that the spacecraft on board are also healthy before they proceed into the final 4 minute terminal count. Once that hold is lifted, then the L minus clock will sync again with the T minus clock, and we'll proceed into the final 4 minutes. If they do need additional time, ULA has a 30-minute window for this mission, or roughly 30 minutes. It's a 29-minute window, so they do have a little bit of wiggle room. Unlike a Falcon 9 rocket, once tanking has begun with an Atlas V rocket, they do have the ability to hold the countdown for the duration of the window. So if they need some additional time to troubleshoot something, they have that available to them. As of the latest bit of fueling updates, just learned that the Centaur upper stage liquid hydrogen tank is now full. Topping is underway for all 4 tanks on both the Centaur upper stage as well as the Atlas booster. The rocket now weighs about 1.29 million pounds, or about 587 kilograms. And teams will continue going through the process of replenishment from now until they get into the final minutes of the count. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, alongside photographer John Pisani, are running the technical operations of the broadcast today. All 3 of our photographers have set remote cameras for this mission, so be sure to follow them all on X to see the excellent work that they come up with following the liftoff of this Atlas V rocket. You can find John at John Pisani Photo, Adam is at A Byrne NYC, Michael Kane is at MD Kane Jr. We've also got Adam over on the Cape side for that vantage point of the Falcon, or excuse me, of the Atlas V ascent from the Space Coast. We're also joined this morning in our sunrise launch coverage by our friends P. Carstens with Max Q Productions. And in a little bit, we'll also be joined by Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. Just past the 48-minute point in the countdown as ULA is preparing for the launch of its Atlas V rocket. It's been a busy time for Amazon and its project Kuiper constellation. Of course, this is just the 5th mission sending satellites into low Earth orbit. With a launch today and the deployment of the 27 Kuiper satellites on board. Amazon will have a total of 129 satellites in low Earth orbit. These satellites will be deployed by the Atlas V rocket at an altitude of 280 miles, or about 450 kilometers above the Earth's surface. At that point, the Kuiper team takes over and will perform their orbit raising maneuvers, and eventually the satellites will arrive at their assigned operating orbit at about 392 miles, or 630 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Getting some Cape Side video from our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs. A nice side vantage point of the Atlas rocket. You can see some of that venting going on there from the top of the booster near the Centaur upper stage. Again, teams now that they have reached flight levels for the locks on both the booster as well as the Centaur upper stage, they will continue in this replenishment. When the Atlas V is rolled out from the vertical integration facility to its point here at the pad, actually, Stephen, if we can go back to that wide shot where you can see the VIF on the right-hand side of your screen, it's a distance of about a third of a mile. And once the rocket reaches that point, they load it up with RP1, a rocket-grade kerosene. The final cryogenic fueling, which happens here on launch day, including the liquid oxygen on board the Atlas booster, as well as locks on the Centaur upper stage and liquid hydrogen on the upper stage as well. That happens, of course, on launch day, so that they stay at the correct temperature. As the Kuiper constellation continues to build out, even though we don't have a fully operational constellation available just yet, Amazon is already starting to make some big business deals where its constellation is concerned. Earlier this month, on September 4th, Amazon announced a partnership with JetBlue. That'll be its first airline partnering with a Kuiper service, which will begin in 2027, according to the company. Amazon has also started performing some speed tests with its constellation on board with some local terminals. So really starting to see how the functionality of this low Earth orbit constellation works as it looks toward the start of customer service in early 2026, potentially later this year. Also, things are busy at their processing facility here at the Kennedy Space Center. We can show you a photo of what the outside of that processing facility looks like as we're checking out some dolphins cruising along the Banana River here, courtesy of Chuck. This is a payload processing facility built by and dedicated to the processing of Kuiper satellites. This is at the former shuttle landing facility, now the launch and landing facility managed by Space Florida. In its most recent update back on September 12th, Amazon said that they had more than 80 Kuiper satellites on site as more continue to come, and they continue the processing flow of things and get up to a higher cadence of throughput. One of the biggest bottlenecks, if you ask any launch provider or some of the government agencies responsible for managing payload processing and the flow of satellites and spacecraft, is it's tough to find space for all that to happen, whether you're talking about missions launching from here in Florida or out west in California. And so Amazon having their own dedicated payload processing center is a big boon for them, given that they can just have that dedicated space to start to ramp up their constellation launches. As of now, they have one more flight booked on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. They bought 9 total Atlas V rockets to launch their Kuiper constellation, in addition to 38 launches with ULA's Vulcan rocket. ULA expects to launch the first flight of Kuiper satellites on Vulcan later this year. In the latest update from ULA, they report that the countdown is progressing smoothly with, as you can see, we're at L minus 40, so coming to the final 40 minutes of the planned count. And we're just about 10 minutes away from ULA entering into the planned hold. Upon departure from Florida's Space Coast, the Atlas V will begin, as ULA describes it, the pitch-yaw roll maneuvers to put the rocket on a path heading northeast, lifting off the pad. As an 18-minute climb heading into a 51.9 degree, 280 mile high or 450 kilometer orbit. And teams have now entered the planned 30-minute hold. And this is a planned hold set for the uh, T-minus 4-minute point in the terminal count. This is built in by ULA to allow teams to go through the final checkouts and evaluations of the rocket, the subsystems, and the rest of the architecture involved in launching their Atlas V rocket. They will also conduct their final flight readiness poll before releasing the hold. And the clock syncs up with the L minus clock that you see in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Just under 30 minutes to go. Teams are now conducting a pre-flight weather briefing. Just getting a final status of things before they progress into, or as they continue on in this planned 30-minute hold. Also, as far as the cryo tanks, they have been topped off to flight levels, according to ULA. Rocket now fully fueled and ready to launch once teams have conducted their final readiness poll. Taking a look now at the perspective of the Atlas V rocket from our Adam Bernstein there on the Cape side of things. A nice view of the fully fueled Atlas V getting ready to make its ascent from Florida's Space Coast. Again, the rocket will be heading in a northeasterly trajectory once it heads off from the pad. Weather is go for liftoff in just about 28 and a half minutes from now for the most recent weather briefing from the launch weather officer from the 45th Weather Squadron. To get a better view of the trajectory for this mission, we want to bring in this graphic that was created by ULA that'll give you a good overview of both where the rocket is heading as well as where some of the milestones happening during flight will take place relative to the position of the rocket on its ascent. See, just off of the coast of Florida is where the solid rocket boosters will be jettisoned. Booster engine cutoff coming up as the Falcon 9 is parallel to Georgia just before the tip of South Carolina. And MES-1, that is Centaur main engine start number 1. While we won't see these milestones, not the ones I just mentioned, but the upcoming deployment of the Kuiper satellites, we do have a better idea of when exactly they're going to be happening. ULA providing the timeline that includes the beginning of the separation phase and the conclusion that will start at T plus 20 minutes and 21 seconds post liftoff. The last of the 27 Kuiper satellites will be released from the Centaur upper stage at about T plus 35 minutes and 11 seconds. There will be one more burn of the Centaur main engine that will last a little more than 10 seconds in duration, setting up for the disposal burn of the Centaur upper stage, and then the mission will wrap up just a little more than an hour after liftoff. Taking a look back at our live chat, want to thank Virginia for a very generous $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Virginia. Really appreciate your support today. Also, let us know where you're watching this launch from. Of course, we've got a number of folks here in the Central Florida area. We typically have a global audience, so it's a treat to learn where you're joining us from around the world. See Red Dawn checking in from Wisconsin. Thomas Myers just a little ways away from our launch team, the edge of the Indian River in downtown Bellwood. A little further up north, Caitlin Godsey checking in from New Smyrna. Got channel member Big Ron joining us from Jacksonville, Mike Elkin in St. Augustine, Jolyn True from Nova Scotia, and Rudd 138 from the Netherlands. So this is what I mean by a global audience. We've got folks from all over the world joining us, and it's fabulous to see. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream to allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. since we have just a little less than 24 minutes remaining on the clock. In addition to the launches that Amazon procured from United Launch Alliance, they also bought more than or a dozen from Blue Origin with its New Glenn rocket, and with an option to add an additional 15 missions on that vehicle. They also have 18 flights aboard the Ariane 6 rocket, though it's still TBD as to when either of those launch vehicles will fly their first batch of Kuiper satellites into low Earth orbit. The next Ariane 6 rocket being prepared down in French Guiana is another European mission, so it won't be the next flight of the Ariane 6, and we'll see if they're able to launch at least one more time and what that payload will be for the next mission. As we learned from NASA launch services program during the broadcast for the IMAP mission that launched. Oh gosh, was that yesterday? If that was yesterday. It's been quite a week here at Spaceflight now, covering a lot of things, so it's starting to jumble together just a little bit. But during the IMAP coverage, NASA LSP noted that the next launch of a Blue Origin New Glenn rocket carrying NASA's Escapade mission, a pair of Mars-bound spacecraft manufactured by Rocket Lab, that's set to fly in the late October, early November timeframe. So no specific launch date just yet, but you do know that those two satellites are here in Florida going through their final processing and checkouts at the Astrotech facilities. And they will be prepared and go through final fueling before they are, of course, encapsulated onto the payload fairing, or within the payload fairings, for that second flight of Blue Origin New Glenn. Meanwhile, we're 21 minutes, 18 seconds and counting ahead of the flight of this Atlas V rocket. Getting down to the final Atlases that ULA will fly. Of course, they still have a handful more that Amazon purchased in order to support their Kuiper constellation. 6 of them have been set aside at this juncture for future launches of Boeing Starliner spacecraft as well. Next flight of a Starliner not expected until sometime in 2026, and the most recent times that the Starliner program has been brought up in NASA briefings, it has been suggested that it could be a cargo mission and would not carry crew the next time Starliner flies, although that has not been officially decided. That does seem to be where mission managers are leaning at this point in time. If that flight goes well, the earliest we would see a Starliner 1 launch, full crew rotation mission would be presumably the second half of 2026, around the time that we saw Crew 11 launch this year. That said, NASA is also looking at slightly longer nominal commercial crew program missions, with the current Crew 11 group of astronauts and cosmonauts set to stay aboard the ISS until the March time frame. So looking at extending that mission out to 8 months as we're getting close to the end of the ISS. That crew, though, which includes NASA astronaut Zena Carmen and Mike Fink, they'll be on board the ISS at the point at which NASA marks 25 years of continuous human presence on board the space station. So, big milestone for all involved with the ISS program and a special opportunity for those two NASA astronauts in particular. coming up on the final 11 minutes in the count. I mentioned earlier that ULA provided a little bit more detail this go around on the deployment sequence for the Kuiper satellites. I want to bring in a graphical representation of that shared by ULA. The breakout of the start and end of the deployment sequence, which are mile markers number 8 and 9 on the roadmap for this mission, if you will. This begins at T plus 20 minutes and 21.8 seconds, and deployment will conclude at T plus 35 minutes, 11 seconds. Again, this is ULA's third time deploying Kuiper satellites into low Earth orbit, the fifth overall flight for the Kuiper constellation as well. Latest update from Amazon is that the payloads have been switched to flight modes. So sounds like teams are getting ready for their final status check as well. We'll bring that audio in for you as soon as that is ready. Here's a look at the very latest on the weather front for this mission. You can see conditions are looking very good ahead of flight. We're coming up to the final status check here for the Atlas V rocket. Want to quickly thank Gary Mackey for a $10 super chat before we get into that final status check. Really appreciate that, Gary. Final status check should happen right about L-7 minutes, so we're coming up to it. You can see a look inside the Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center here, if we can bring this image in. We're seeing some more of the launch team there on the right. Poll is about to begin. Let's go ahead and listen in.
L-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems. Propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems. Propulsion. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
ASGAS.
Go.
Electrical systems. Airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Op support.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Umbilical.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline Monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Ops Safety Manager.
Go.
ULA Safety Officer.
Go.
Vehicle System Engineer.
Go.
Anomaly Chief.
Go.
Range and Weather.
Go.
Launch Director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with account. ALC Verify T0 is set for 12:09:30 Zulu.
Verified.
Pulling.
And with that, we've got a good go for launch. The L- clock will sync with the T- clock coming up here in the next minute and a half once the hold is released. Less than 5 minutes to go before the flight of the Atlas V rocket carrying 27 more Kuiper satellites to a low Earth orbit. You're currently nestled inside the 5.4 meter diameter payload fairings atop the Atlas V rocket. That's about 17.7 feet. Coming up to the release of the plan hold in the next 15 seconds. And with the T- clock and the L- clock now in sync, you can think of them as one and the same. There's no more difference. L- 3 minutes and counting. At this point in the count, the liquid oxygen tank is no longer in top-off mode, and teams are preparing to pressurize it for launch. L- 2 minutes and counting. Coming up to the final minute of the count, ULA commentators report that there are no issues being worked. 1 minute and counting.
Stable at step 3. Verify ECS reduced for launch.
Verify. 25.
Status check.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur.
Go Kuiper.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. We have liftoff of the Atlas V rocket. 27 more Kuiper satellites on their way to low Earth orbit. And a good initial burn. Those 5 GEM 63 solid rocket boosters alongside the main engine. Coming up on a minute into flight. About 45 seconds to SRB jettison. The Atlas pass through max. We're jettison coming up in the next few seconds. There go the SRBs. Atlas still being powered by its RD-180 engine. A little more than 2 minutes into flight. Coming up in less than a minute will be the payload fairing jettison at about T plus 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Fairing jettison now less than 10 seconds. And there go the payload fairings. Coming up next at about T plus 4 minutes and 22 seconds will be the cutoff of the RD-180 engine. Booster engine cutoff, followed seconds later by booster Centaur separation, then the ignition of that Centaur main engine. That'll happen at about little more than 4.5 minutes into flight. You can see booster engine cutoff represented in that graphic, and a good separation. And ignition of the RL-10 engine on the Centaur upper stage. And a nice onboard camera view of that RL-10 engine. At this point, ULA will no longer be providing onboard camera views live at this point in the broadcast, but you know that coming up next will be the wrap up of that first burn of the RL-10 engine on the Centaur upper stage. That burn will wrap up at T plus 17 minutes and 32.8 seconds, setting the stage for the release of the Kuiper satellites that will start at T plus 20 minutes, 21.8 seconds, with the separation phase wrapping up at T plus 35 minutes, 11.8 seconds. And a nice little overview of the plume left behind by the Atlas as it made its ascent. Those solids do leave a mark as the rocket climbs uphill, and it's quite a thing to see in the aftermath. Still see the stage used by NASA in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen as well from their coverage of the IMAP mission that launched yesterday. The good launch of this Atlas V rocket. Of course, now we've got 2 out of 3 launches that we have scheduled today in the books. We're working on our launch replays for you. We'll have those ready momentarily, so stick around so you can see all the various camera angles that we had with today's mission, some of which we weren't able to bring to you live in the moment, since we can only show so much at any given time. You want to stick around for that. With this now 5th batch overall of Kuiper satellites on its way to orbit, they will be bringing the Kuiper constellation up to a total of 129 satellites once they are separated from the Centaur upper stage of ULA's rocket. A little more than 8 minutes into the flight at this point. Again, the current burn of the RL-10 engine on the Centaur upper stage has just about 9 minutes remaining in it. ULA says that telemetry is still looking good by the Centaur upper stage. Given that Amazon has also said that they have, prior to this launch earlier this month, that they had more than 80 Kuiper satellites in their payload processing facility. Certainly could be the case that we're not too far away from seeing the next launch of Kuiper satellites. Most likely, they will be on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket as opposed to the next flight on board an Atlas rocket. The reason I say that is because earlier this month, ULA and Viasat announced that towards the end of October, they would be launching the next Viasat 3 satellite to geostationary orbit. And so that mission will presumably be next in the flow for ULA. At this point in the count, the Atlas V rocket is more than 1,000 miles northeast of the launch pad, traveling at a cruising altitude of about 12,800 miles per hour at this point in the count. Or cruising speed. I think I said cruising altitude incorrectly. Taking a look at our live chat here as we continue to get those replays ready for you. I want to thank a few folks in our live chat for supporting us here today. Thanks to Gary Mackey for a $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Gary. Giovanni with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Giovanni. Norman Reitzel with a pair of $5 super chats. Thank you so much, Norman. Also, Rocket Lady Elizabeth, good to see you again today. Appreciate the super chat there, saying go Spaceflight now, go ULA. Rebecca Seelig, the very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Rebecca. Who says thank you for your amazing coverage so far today. Yes, we've got 2 now in the books. We've got 1 more for you later on tonight. And Jen Nanana, great name, says, hi, Will and chat. I have a couple of noob questions. Number 1, was liftoff nominal? From our streaming view, it looked to be quite an angle. And number 2, was there unexpected debris at the max Q point? Thank you. As far as the liftoff, it appeared to be nominal. The Atlas V and the 551 configuration does move very quickly off the pad and start its pitch yaw roll maneuver shortly after departing slick 30 or slick 41. So that motion appeared to line up with some of the previous Kuiper launches that we've seen. As far as your question about debris at max Q, I'd have to roll the tape back to see. We'll have the replays ready for you in just a moment here. Nothing immediately jumped out at me as I was seeing it live, but we're going to roll the tape back in just a moment for you and watch those replays together. So we'll be able to see what we see and see if there's anything that looks off color, so to speak. while we're waiting for those replays to be ready to share with you all, want to go ahead and share with you a picture captured by one of our photographers, Michael Kane. Not from the ground, but a nice aerial shot. If John, we can bring that up into the program. This is a nice view from the sky from the south looking north. You can see the Cape jutting out there from the edge of Florida Space Coast. The shoreline there of the city of Cape Canaveral in the bottom left part of the frame. And of course, the Atlas V rocket has made its ascent from Slick 41. A spectacular shot from the air. Alrighty, folks, we've got those replays ready for you. We're going to kick things off with the fixed view from John Pisani here at the press site. Moving on to the wide view. And a super wide view. As we're watching the rocket ascend on the super wide view, you can get a nice sense of the pitch over roll maneuver as it's happening, lifting off from the pad. As far as the current mission status of things, a little more than let's see, per ULA, they've passed through main engine cutoff. MECO confirmed for the Centaur upper stage, and the upper stage has now reached low Earth orbit. They will coast for just a little bit here, and the deployment sequence for the Kuiper satellites is set to begin in just about a minute. You're looking at Pete Carson's tracking view camera now. Really nice view of SRB jettison there. Moving on to Chuck and Chen's Causeway Tracker. Moving on to Adam's Cape Side tracker. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start to close things down for our broadcast here on the Kuiper launch on board an Atlas V rocket. At this point, we're L plus 28 minutes, 24 seconds, which means ULA is smack dab in the middle of the separation sequence for those 27 Kuiper satellites. We do have one more launch for you that is currently scheduled, the flight of a Falcon 9 rocket from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base. That's coming up later on tonight. Head on over to our website, spaceflightnow.com. Click on the launch schedule tab. So if there are any further adjustments to the T0 of that mission, you'll be kept in the loop. We'll also post any T0 adjustments on our social media as well. So be sure to follow us simply at Spaceflight Now. Also follow our photographer team, since they will have photos, including the one we shared from Michael and others once they go retrieve their remote cameras from the pad. So lots to look forward to from this mission. And of course, we do have the one more coming up later on tonight. So not quite done yet. It will be one more long launch day, and then our team can finally catch a breather for a couple of days, which I think I can speak for all of us will be quite nice. I want to thank our photographer team of Adam, Michael, and John for all their hard work this week. Big thanks as well to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, to our friends Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions, as well as Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. Also, thank you to our moderator helping us out in the live chat, Aussie Space Girl, who had to peel off since it's getting late down there in Australia at this point in the day. So thanks to her for helping us out. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you have been watching us from today. We certainly appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to welcoming you back in when next we have a live launch to cover. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.